You think you know Stargate? Think again. Behind the scenes of this sci-fi classic, there were casting surprises, crazy stunts, and production choices that almost never made it to the screen. Some of the stories are so strange the producers didn't want anyone to know. Join us as we uncover the hidden facts, behind-the-scenes chaos, and secrets that shaped the movie. Kurt Russell almost left. Kurt Russell almost walked away from Stargate before it even began, and the reason was surprisingly simple. He had been reading the wrong script. What reached him was an early draft that was never meant to leave the writer's circle. It didn't reflect the final vision of the film. The tone felt off, the characters seemed flat, and the story lacked the depth the filmmakers were aiming for. Based on that version, Russell didn't see much potential, so he kept turning the offer down without giving it much thought. At the time, no one fully understood why Kurt Russell was uninterested. From the outside, it looked like he was just passing on another science fiction role. But behind the scenes, the producers knew they needed him badly. This wasn't a typical studio-backed film. Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin were putting together an independent production, and that came with major risks. Without a big studio supporting them, they had to rely on international financing. In those markets, a recognizable star mattered more than anything else. Russell's name carried weight, and it could help secure the money needed to actually make the film. So they kept trying. Instead of giving up, they made sure the correct version of the script finally reached him. When Russell sat down and read the real shooting script, his reaction changed almost immediately. This time, he saw a clearer story, stronger character work, and a tone that made more sense. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough for him to reconsider. His response was simple: "This isn't so bad." That small shift opened the door to a major decision. The producers offered him $7 million to take the role. For a film with a total budget of $55 million, that was a huge portion. It was a risky move, especially for an independently financed project where every dollar mattered, but they believed his involvement would pay off. And it did. Russell's attachment gave the film credibility. It helped secure funding, reassured investors, and made distributors more confident in picking it up. In many ways, his decision didn't just add a lead actor, it helped hold the entire project together. But even with Russell on board, things behind the scenes were far from smooth. An awful script. While Kurt Russell eventually came around to Stargate, James Spader had a very different reaction from the start. He didn't just have doubts about the script, he openly said he thought it was awful. At that point in his career, Spader was known for more serious, character-driven roles. He had built a reputation as a thoughtful actor who chose projects carefully, but he was also in a difficult position. He needed steady work, and not every opportunity could be a prestigious film. That's what made his decision interesting. Even though he didn't like the script, he still agreed to take the role. Part of it came down to timing and money, but there was something else. Spader later explained that the script's flaws actually caught his attention. He found something strangely compelling about how uneven it was. It wasn't that he thought it was good, it was that he found the badness unusual enough to explore as an actor. Still, that didn't mean he stayed quiet. Once filming began, tensions quickly showed up. Spader often disagreed with director Roland Emmerich and producer Dean Devlin, especially when it came to dialogue. If a line felt weak or unrealistic to him, he pushed back. These weren't small disagreements either. They slowed down production and created stress across the set. At one point, things reached a breaking point. Spader refused to come out of his trailer. He wanted changes made to the script and made it clear he wasn't going to continue until something was done. Filming stopped. The crew had to wait, and every hour of delay cost money the production couldn't afford to lose. Under pressure, Emmerich and Devlin started rewriting lines on the spot just to keep things moving. That's when Russell stepped in. Frustrated by the delay, he confronted Spader directly. Spader argued that the dialogue needed to be fixed. Russell didn't disagree, but his response was blunt. He said, "Of course it's horrible. That's why they pay you $1 million. If it were brilliant, you'd do it for free." It was a simple statement, but it showed a clear difference in how the two actors viewed the job. Russell accepted the business side of filmmaking, while Spader was still focused on the quality of the material. In the end, that tension didn't ruin the film. It actually helped shape it. Spader's frustration pushed him to deliver a more thoughtful performance, even within a script he didn't fully respect. Instead of falling apart, the production found a way to move forward, and somehow things were about to get even more chaotic behind the scenes. Risky, independent gamble. Before Stargate ever reached theaters, it faced a problem that almost stopped it completely. At the time, many people in Hollywood believed that science fiction was no longer a strong genre. Studios saw it as risky and unpredictable. Big-budget sci-fi films had struggled in the past, and executives didn't want to take another chance. Because of that, several major studios looked at the project and decided to pass. For director Roland Emmerich and producer Dean Devlin, this was a major setback. They believed in the idea, but without studio backing, the film had no clear path forward. Instead of giving up, they made a bold decision. They would raise the entire budget on their own. That meant putting together $55 million independently, which was a huge amount at the time, especially for a science fiction film with no guaranteed success. This is where things became even more complicated. Without a major studio, the filmmakers had to rely on international investors to fund the project. In foreign markets, investors often cared less about the script and more about who was starring in the film. A well-known actor could make the difference between getting funding or not. That's why casting someone like Kurt Russell became so important. His name gave the project credibility and helped secure the money they needed to move forward. Eventually, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, also known as MGM, agreed to distribute the film. But even that decision wasn't based on full confidence. MGM had an open spot in their release schedule and needed something to fill it. Stargate fit the timing, so they took the chance. Even then, studio executives had doubts. They believed the $55 million budget was too low for a film of that scale and expected it to grow closer to $100 million during production. Those doubts created constant pressure behind the scenes. Every day of filming mattered. Every delay meant more money spent, and since the film was independently financed, there was no safety net. If something went wrong, there was no big studio stepping in to cover the losses. The team had to stay on schedule and within budget at all times. This made the entire production feel unstable. Even small problems could turn into serious financial risks. But at the same time, that pressure pushed the filmmakers to stay focused and find creative solutions. And as the budget tightened, even something as simple as a prop nearly caused a major problem: the Stargate. One of the biggest surprises during the making of Stargate was how close its most important visual came to failing completely. The Stargate itself, the massive ring that drives the entire story, did not look impressive at first. In fact, early on, it looked wrong in a way that worried the entire team. The first version of the prop was painted flat black. The idea was simple. The filmmakers wanted it to feel ancient, mysterious, and powerful. On paper, that made sense. But once they placed it under the bright lights of the studio, the result was disappointing. Instead of looking like advanced alien technology, the surface absorbed light in a way that removed all detail. It looked dull, heavy, and flat. Some people on set even said it looked like a giant tire sitting in the middle of the scene. This quickly became a serious concern. The Stargate was not just another prop. It was the central idea of the film. Almost every major moment revolved around it. If the gate didn't look convincing, the audience would struggle to take the story seriously. The filmmakers realized that if they didn't fix this one element, the entire movie could suffer. With limited time and no extra budget to build a new version, they had to act fast. The solution came in the middle of production. Instead of redesigning the prop, they decided to repaint it. The team chose a metallic silver finish, hoping it would reflect light better and bring out the details in the design. The change worked almost immediately. Under studio lighting, the silver surface reacted in a completely different way. Light bounced off the metal, creating highlights and shadows that gave the gate depth. Small design details that were invisible before suddenly stood out. Whether it was lit by floodlights, torches, or softer light sources, the gate began to look more complex and more believable. This simple decision changed everything. The Stargate now looked like something both ancient and advanced at the same time. It felt real enough to carry the story. What started as a rushed fix became one of the most recognizable designs in science fiction. The silver ring, combined with glowing symbols, went on to define not just the film, but the entire franchise that followed. It's one of those moments where a problem forced a quick decision, and that decision ended up shaping the identity of the project. But fixing the look of the gate was only the beginning. Making it actually work on screen was an even bigger challenge. Garage experiment gone wrong. Even after fixing how the gate looked, Stargate still had a bigger problem: how it would actually work on screen. The portal effect, the liquid surface inside the ring, had to feel believable. Early ideas didn't meet expectations. Director Roland Emmerich kept rejecting different visual effects tests, and at one point, key members of the effects team were even fired because the results didn't match his vision. With time running out, the team had to try something different. Instead of relying only on planned designs, they started experimenting on their own. In a small, improvised setup, they used a plexiglass tank filled with water. To make the movement more visible on camera, they added iced tea powder. Then they used a simple drill with a wooden attachment to stir the liquid. That's when they saw something unexpected. As the liquid settled, it formed a strange spiral pattern. It looked unusual and had a natural motion that didn't feel forced. This became known as the strudel effect, and it gave the portal its signature swirling appearance. But that was only part of the effect. The team also needed a powerful burst when the gate first activated. To create that, they used an air-mortared system to push water outward. The early tests were risky. At high pressure, the water didn't just move, it exploded out of the tank and flooded the workspace. Equipment got soaked, and the setup had to be rebuilt. After several attempts, they realized the pressure needed to be carefully controlled. Instead of using extreme force, they lowered it to just over 2 pounds per square inch. That adjustment made all the difference. The water pushed outward in a controlled burst, then quickly pulled back into the tank. This created what became known as the kawoosh, one of the most memorable parts of the gate activation. At a time when computer-generated imagery was still limited, the team chose to rely on these practical effects. Real water, real motion, and real lighting gave the portal a texture and weight that early CGI could not match. It made the effect feel grounded and believable. What makes this story stand out is how simple the solution was. A garage-style experiment built from basic materials ended up creating the defining visual of the entire film. What started as a last-minute workaround became one of the most iconic effects in science fiction. But while the effects team was solving problems in small spaces, the rest of the production was building something on a much larger scale: the largest dome. To bring the world of Stargate to life, the filmmakers needed more than good ideas. They needed space, an enormous amount of it. That search led them to the Spruce Goose Dome, one of the largest freestanding domes ever built. The dome had a unique history. It was originally constructed to house a massive aircraft designed by Howard Hughes. The plane, known as the Hercules, was so large that it required a structure of equal scale just to store it. But after the aircraft was moved out in the early 1990s, the dome was left empty. What remained was a huge industrial space waiting for a new purpose. That empty space became the perfect solution for the Stargate production. Instead of building small sets across different locations, the team moved everything into one place. Inside the dome, they began constructing entire environments from scratch. This included the Stargate command base, Ra's pyramid ship, and large sections of the alien world seen in the film. The scale of the work was massive. Around 300 workers were involved, and they spent nearly 6 months building the sets. These weren't small pieces placed in front of a camera. They were full-sized structures that actors could walk through and interact with. By the time the construction was complete, the sets covered an area larger than 4 football fields. This approach had a major impact on how the film looked. Because the environments were real and built at full scale, the camera could capture depth, detail, and movement in a natural way. Actors didn't have to imagine their surroundings. They were standing inside them. This helped performances feel more grounded and made the world more believable on screen. It also solved a budget problem. Even though the film had a $55 million budget, which was already tight for a project of this size, these large practical sets made it feel much bigger. The audience saw wide spaces, detailed designs, and complex environments without realizing how carefully everything had been planned to stay within budget. Turning an empty dome into a complete alien world was not easy, but it gave the film a visual strength that stood out. It showed how creative planning could replace the need for more expensive solutions. But even with these massive sets in place, the production was still about to face one of its most stressful moments: VFX crisis. Just when it seemed like Stargate was finally coming together, the production ran into one of its most serious problems, and it happened at the very end. During the final stages of editing, the team realized something wasn't working. Certain scenes felt incomplete, and the overall flow of the film needed more visual support. The solution was clear but risky. They needed more visual effects. The number wasn't small. Editors requested 66 new effects shots, and they needed them immediately. The problem was the timeline. The film was close to its delivery deadline, leaving only about 1 week to complete everything. Under normal conditions, even a handful of effects shots could take weeks. Completing 66 in 7 days seemed impossible. This is where things took a surprising turn. The team turned to a piece of technology called Domino. It was an early real-time compositing system, something very rare at the time. Most visual effects work in the early 1990s required long rendering times. Artists had to wait hours, sometimes days, just to see a single layered shot. Domino changed that process. It allowed artists to combine visual elements and see the results instantly, which saved a huge amount of time. With this system in place, visual effects artist Mitch Drazek stepped in to handle the challenge. What followed was an intense and exhausting week. He worked continuously, focusing on one shot after another with almost no break. The pressure was constant because there was no room for delays or mistakes. Every completed shot had to work on the first try. By the end of those 7 days, all 66 shots were finished. It was a result that no one had expected at the start of the process. More importantly, the new effects didn't just fill gaps, they improved the film. Scenes that once felt empty now had more energy. Transitions between moments became smoother. The added visuals helped connect different parts of the story and gave the film a stronger sense of scale. This last-minute push may have saved the movie. Without those added effects, the final version might have felt incomplete or rushed. Instead, the film gained a level of polish that made it more engaging for audiences. Still, the situation showed just how close things came to falling apart. A single delay or failure during that week could have caused serious problems for the entire release. And while the post-production team was racing against time, the challenges on set were just as intense. Costume nightmare. The costumes and props in Stargate were some of the most impressive and complex elements of the production, but they also created major challenges on set. The designs for the Horus Guards and Ra were built from multiple materials, including layers of leather, velvet, fiberglass, and metal. Every piece was covered in detailed Egyptian symbols, giving the characters a strong, otherworldly presence. These costumes weren't just visually stunning, they were massive and heavy, which made them difficult to assemble and wear. Some of the larger pieces, especially Ra's headdress, required several crew members just to put them on. Once the actors were inside the costumes, practical problems immediately arose. Moving in full armor or layered robes was extremely difficult. Fighting scenes had to be carefully choreographed because even a small misstep could cause injury. The helmets for the Horus Guards had almost no ventilation, trapping heat inside. Actors struggled to breathe, and long takes quickly became exhausting and dangerous. Medical staff had to stay nearby, and breaks were strictly monitored to prevent serious health issues. Despite these difficulties, the actors managed to perform, which made the characters feel imposing and real on screen. One of the most iconic details of the costumes was the glowing eyes inside the Horus Guard helmets. The effect was surprisingly simple. Small LEDs, powered by hidden batteries, created a threatening and organic glow. While mechanically basic, the lights added a sense of life to the characters that made them unforgettable in the final film. The team also made over 600 custom props for extras, including weapons cast from resin to look like obsidian. Every item was handmade, which was especially impressive given the limited budget. And even with costumes and props perfected, the final layer of filming, the desert battle scenes, would push everyone to their absolute limits. Actors went blind. One of the most surprising changes in Stargate happened because of casting, and it completely reshaped the story. The character of Ra, the main villain, was not originally written the way audiences saw him in the final version. That shift came largely because of Jai Davidson. Davidson's path into the film was unusual. He wasn't actively trying to build a long-term acting career. He had been discovered at a party and quickly gained attention after appearing in The Crying Game, which earned him major recognition. But despite that success, he didn't enjoy the spotlight and had little interest in continuing as an actor. So when he was approached for Stargate, he tried to avoid the role in a simple way. He asked for $1 million, assuming the producers would refuse and move on. Instead, they agreed right away. That decision locked him into the project, even though he wasn't fully committed to acting. Once filming began, problems started to appear. Davidson struggled with line delivery and found it difficult to connect with the material. To help him, the production team used large cue cards with phonetic spellings, but even then, it wasn't easy for him to perform consistently. This created delays and added stress to the production, which was already working under tight conditions. When early versions of the film were shown to test audiences, the reaction to Ra was not strong. Viewers didn't find the character convincing or threatening enough. Some even questioned why the hero didn't defeat him more easily. This feedback forced the filmmakers to rethink the character completely. Instead of reshooting everything, they made major changes in post-production. They introduced the idea that Ra was not just a human figure, but an alien parasite living inside a host body. This added a new layer to the story and made the character feel more unique. They also redesigned the voice, using pitch changes and layered effects to give it a deeper, more powerful sound. Visual effects were added to create glowing eyes and a more otherworldly presence. These changes worked. The new version of Ra felt more mysterious and more dangerous. More importantly, it helped the story make sense in a way it hadn't before. What started as a casting challenge ended up pushing the filmmakers to create something more original. In the end, this unexpected problem didn't weaken the film, it helped define it. The idea of alien beings controlling human hosts went on to become a key part of the larger story that followed. But even with the story fixed, the physical challenges of filming were far from over. The villain? One of the biggest surprises in the making of Stargate came from the character of Ra, the film's main villain. The role ended up being completely rewritten because of how the casting unfolded, and it ended up shaping the entire story in ways no one had expected. The actor chosen for Ra was Jai Davidson, who wasn't even trying to pursue acting at the time. He had been discovered at a party and gained attention after his performance in The Crying Game, which earned him critical acclaim. But despite the recognition, he disliked the fame and didn't plan to continue as an actor. When the producers approached him for Stargate, he tried to avoid the role. Davidson asked for $1 million, thinking the filmmakers would reject his demand and leave him alone. Instead, they accepted immediately, which meant he was now committed to a part he hadn't wanted to take. Once filming began, problems quickly appeared. Davidson struggled with line delivery and had difficulty adapting to the script. The production team had to rely on large cue cards with phonetic spellings to help him get through the scenes. Even with that support, it was clear his performance wasn't aligning with the original vision for Ra. To address the issue, the filmmakers made several drastic changes. They turned Ra into an alien parasite inhabiting a human host, which added a layer of mystery and made the character feel more menacing. They redesigned his voice, layering effects and pitch adjustments to create a deeper, more powerful presence. Visual effects were added, including glowing eyes and subtle movements to emphasize his otherworldly nature. These last-minute decisions completely reshaped the mythology of the film. The concept of a powerful alien controlling a human host became central to the story and set the stage for much of the franchise's later lore. What started as a casting challenge ended up creating a more unique and memorable villain than originally imagined. And while Ra was being transformed in post-production, the team still had massive challenges to make the film visually spectacular. The desert shoot. Filming the desert scenes for Stargate pushed the cast and crew to their limits. The production took place in areas like Yuma and Buttercup Valley, where temperatures often rose above 120 degrees Fahrenheit. These were not short bursts of heat. They lasted for hours, day after day, making even basic tasks difficult. The extreme conditions quickly started affecting the equipment. Cameras overheated and stopped working. Film stock began to warp under the sun. Even simple items like plastic water bottles would melt if left out too long. The crew had to constantly monitor their gear and find ways to keep it cool just to continue filming. At the same time, the people on set were struggling just as much. Heat exhaustion became a daily issue. Crew members would become dizzy or collapse, and medical teams had to stay nearby at all times. The risk wasn't occasional. It was constant, and everyone had to stay alert just to get through the day safely. For the actors, the situation was even worse, especially those wearing heavy costumes. The guards, dressed in thick outfits with large helmets, had almost no airflow inside. The heat built up quickly, making it hard to breathe and even harder to move. Some performers came close to fainting during takes, and breaks had to be carefully managed to prevent serious health problems. To cope with these conditions, the team came up with simple but effective survival methods. One trick was burying water bottles in the sand to keep them cooler for longer periods. They also adjusted the filming schedule, focusing on early mornings and late afternoons when the temperature dropped slightly. Midday shooting was avoided whenever possible because the heat was at its worst. Budget limits created another challenge. The production couldn't afford to hire large numbers of extras for wide desert scenes. Instead, they used creative solutions. Crew members built stick figure shapes, dressed them in robes, and placed them far in the background. From a distance, they looked like real people, helping to create the illusion of a larger crowd. To complete the effect, they combined real extras in the foreground with miniatures and carefully staged shots. This mix allowed them to build a convincing world without spending more money. The result looked much bigger than what was actually there. If you loved learning all these behind-the-scenes secrets, join us as we dive even deeper into the making of your favorite films. Hit subscribe and don't miss out.